All right, we're going to pick up where we left off. Last time we kind of watched some videos. We talked about Hollywood's portrayal of what a cowboy was. And so we spent the past couple days going from station to station, putting together a picture of what it was like to be an actual cowboy in this time period in 1865, etc. So we're going to take a peek and see what your list came up with, what the reality was for a cowboy living in this time on the trail in the cattle towns. So if you have something to share, make sure you just share one thing and we'll add it to our list on the T-chart. What's one thing we can add to the reality of what it truly was to be a cowboy on the trail? Yep.
You gotta be really strong and really tough.
Well, yeah, you had to be tough because, and that tough part will fit into when we start getting into the in-depth look at it. You had to be a tough dude. This was hard work.
They didn't get to bathe often.
You know, cowboy hygiene, right? And that was actually one of the stations was they got to bathe once or twice a week. You know, and they were bathing in streams and any type of bodies of water they could find. A lot of times it was not moving bodies of water. And in the photo you saw was in the same place they were going to bathe was the actual horse was in there as well. Okay, and so, you know, it probably wasn't the most clean water in the world. So they were bathing once or twice a week. Okay, so there's a problem right there. I mean, this is a time period where there's no deodorant. Shaving's not going to be, their beards, they're not going to be shaving. They're not going to be bathing a lot. And this is going to come into play when we talk about the other things that have to do with the reality. All right, what other things did you come up with when going from station to station on what the reality of being a cowboy was about? Yep.
Every day they worked basically all day. They had a shift of 18 hours.
18 hours a day working. Now, this kind of goes hand in hand with hygiene. You're working 18 hours a day, so if we went to work at 6 in the morning, you were not getting done until midnight. Think about that. 6 in the morning, midnight, you stop. Think about that. That's a long day. Okay? So here you are, you're going from Texas to Kansas, long trips, hot, dusty, 18-hour days, bathing once or twice a week. Not a recipe for the most clean environment and the most hygienic environment. So when we look over here and we say Hollywood portrays them, they're well groomed, they have nice clothes, shiny guns. No, I don't think so. Not real life. Anything else from reality? Did we know how much they got paid?
They got paid $1 a day for food.
$1 a day. Now, I'm guessing, how long was the cattle drive usually? 2 months. 60 days on an average. We did some computing what $1 a day added up to in 1865. 60 days pay for $1 a day today would be equivalent to $1 a day, would be getting paid $850 for 2 months' work. That's horrible. If we went out on a cattle drive for 2 months, started today and got back in April, and only got $850, working 7 days a week, 18-hour shifts, getting paid $850, was awful. Now, at the end of this 2-month cattle drive, they would get to Abilene, they would get to Dodge City, they'd get paid. They'd go pay for a bath. When you got into these towns, paying for a hot bath was a luxury. Not everybody had plumbing, so they didn't have plumbing. They heat up the water, they dump it in the tub, you take a hot bath. That was a luxury back then. They go get a bath, they get a haircut, get a shave, and they go to saloons. And they use their money for gambling and drinking. And that was a recipe when the alcohol got in with these guys who've been on the trail for 2 months. They wanted to blow off steam. That's where you got people making bad decisions, gunfights, violence. It was just a recipe. But they're spending all their money earned until the next cattle drive, and they do it all over again. And so this wasn't the life that Hollywood portrayed a lot of times with this. Okay? This is the reality. The reality is not the best. It really isn't. Anything else we can add real quick? Yep. You got that from one of the stations? You know, that it's not always sunny, so weather is a problem. Not always good weather. It was dusty, not a lot of trees on this trail, windy. You can imagine the sunburns, so on and so forth. No sunscreen, no deodorant. You know, you had your coffee. The chuck wagon served bread, bacon, which they had bacon because bacon was salted and can keep long times, and beans. And that was the gist of your food for 2 months, which isn't a recipe good for good, you know, with the hygiene problems and you serve beans all the time. It's going to be a smelly, smelly trip to BO and other things. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to transition to the photos and get back to, yep, there it is. Okay. And so we want to take a look, talk about each photo. And this photo is particular, very important to Kansas. So we're going to look at that. Who can tell me what this building is? A lot of people. Okay. Drover's Cottage. This was the first building in Abilene. Okay, first one. See a guy over here waving the train down, and there's somebody down here in a horse and carriage waiting probably to get on the train. But this was the first building in Abilene. Pretty cool stuff. This picture is labeled feeding time. You've got your water source, shade, and just a time to take a break. You see the water source through here. Okay, just a time to take a break. Cattle, help me out. How far could cattle travel in a day?
10 miles.
10 miles. Why not over 10?
Because then they would lose weight.
Yeah, why do you not want cattle to lose weight?
Then they were.
You want them to be the heaviest they can be. You get paid by the pound. How much did you get? How much would, if you sold your cattle in Texas in this time period, how much would you get per head?
$4.
$4, right? And how much if you shipped them out east would you get?
40.
40. $36 more per head of cattle. That's a lot of money. So the bigger they were, the more money they were going to be. Okay? Who are these two dudes? Joseph and James McCoy. They basically founded Abilene. They got Abilene's start, built Drover's Cottage. Very rich and influential guys. Okay. Cowboy hygiene. Again, here's the horse in the same place they are bathing. The water's not a moving body of water, but I like this picture because you've got the chuck wagon up here. The table is out. Probably a good time to eat and take a break, cool off, bathe. He's got his hands working, so he's probably getting the soap ready to go. Just a chance to, if you worked the first 9 hours and got to eat, jumping in the cool water and taking a bath and kind of refreshing yourself is probably a luxury on this trip. that sometimes they didn't get. So they take advantage of it. But this was the hygiene here. Not the cleanest in the world, but this is what they were dealing with on the trail. What's this guy called? What is he? He's a drover. Raise your hand. He's a drover. Now, he's got his lasso. I want to talk about things. His boots were a tool. Boots were designed to have points and heels. So you could slide your boot into the stirrup, and your heel would hit the stirrup so your boot wouldn't slip out. That's why cowboy boots were designed. His hat was designed not for a fashion statement, to keep the sun off of you. Okay? You're saying he's got a long sleeve shirt. That had to be hot. Sweat is the body's natural air conditioner. When you sweat in the summers and your head's sweating and the wind hits it, doesn't that kind of feel nice? Okay? So they wore long sleeve shirts. Those were natural air conditioners. It trapped the sweat in. The shirt would get wet. Okay? When your shirt is all sweaty and the wind hits it, it's a nice feeling. Okay? So they had their natural air conditioners. Chaps. You may know what chaps were for. They wore it over their pants.
Didn't they like protect your legs?
Protect your legs from brush, from barbed wire. Also, if you've ever ridden a horse before, you want protection. It's important when you ride a horse. Anybody horse riders in here? Gotta have tight pants on. Otherwise, the inside of your legs will get rubbed raw. It will hurt. Okay, so they wore chaps to take care of that as well. Important tools of the trade for a cowboy. I have this circled down here. This was called the horn of the saddle, and it will show in the next picture right here. When they lassoed a steer, that would take care of it. All right, next picture we had cattle crew. Now I wanted to show this one because I thought this is probably the coolest diagram. It actually shows how a trail crew operated. You've got your trail boss. This dude makes the best money. He doesn't make the dollar a day. He's in charge of this. And these two guys as well. They make decent money. Now you get back here to your swing positions and your flanks. And these guys were the lowest of the low. They pulled drag duty in the back. This was your trail crew. Okay? You had your chuck wagon, and you had the Wrangler and the Remuda. The Remuda was, the reality was you had to bring more horses. Because you were riding horses for 18 hours a day, you had to switch out horses and give horses a break. So they took more than that. This is how a trail crew operated. These guys couldn't push too fast, and these guys couldn't get ahead. These guys got ahead, they'd turn, and you'd have problems. So they were all synchronized, and they were good at what they did. One group couldn't get ahead of the other, or you had problems. Okay, I just think that's a really, really cool picture. Okay, so going back, I hope you all are jotting this stuff down, by the way. If not, if you didn't get the first part, by all means go on YouTube on Edmodo and get this. This was night shift or something like that. Isn't that what this was called? You had guys, this guy's taking his boots off down here. This guy's actually pulling the covers over this guy. It actually looks like it's cold at night. They got jackets on and covering up. And so that's how it was. And these guys, you had guys taking different shifts. These guys would sleep. These guys would go. Somebody had to go watch the herd while the others sleep, and you sleep 2 or 3 hours. You'd switch and go to a shift. And so you weren't going to get like a full night shift or sleep ever. Okay. This one just kind of shows. I'm guessing this guy was the point, and this goes clear back. Loading chutes, loading cattle. You had a lot of, you see the guy with the bullwhip over here, and two guys over here with the bullwhips. Okay. Now they don't use bullwhips anymore. They have cattle prods, and they're electric. And so if you need to get the cattle to go somewhere different, you have that cattle prod, stick it in their side, give them a little jolt of electricity. Okay? Got it? This was exactly what it looked like. A mess. Okay, trying to load cattle. Cattle, if one goes, the rest of them want to go. Okay, so you have to make sure they're all getting on at the same time, and there's nobody, you're not rushing them too much, you're not pushing them one way, because it's going to be a recipe for disaster. I love this picture because it shows the essence of how it really was. Wide open spaces, a lot of cattle. You can see the actual trail crew around the cattle. Okay, you can see these guys in position trying to keep them at bay. Okay, these are way cool pictures. This is cool. They were all up here, and they'd bring them into town, and they'd keep them in here to try to fatten them up again, and then they'd load them up and ship them out east, which we'll talk about eventually. Load them up through, and they'd get them through here and load them up in the rail cars. Okay, and so these are our pictures. Now, what we want to focus on in the next few days is figure out why was Kansas so critical and so important to cattle drives after the Civil War. What did Kansas have that no other place had? See, all these cattle were in Texas, and you were going to get $4 a head in Texas as compared to $40 a head on the East Coast. So if you had 2,000 cattle, and you were getting $36 more a head, you were getting a lot more money. Okay, a lot more money. Around $60,000, or excuse me, $40,000 to $50,000 more if you were to move them up to Kansas, and that back then was a lot of money. So Kansas must have had something special that other places didn't. Why they went to Kansas, and that's what we're going to be focused on. Does anybody have any questions about our pictures that we looked at today, or what we talked about as far as the realities of the cowboy? And we will, what's that? We'll stop there.